Good afternoon, sports fans. As the season is over and there's very, very little live sport for me to get to, I thought I'd do something a little bit different for the content to get us through the off season. So for this video, I've donned my favourite PE kit. If you know, you know. And I'm going to talk about my season following the Sheffield Sharks in the British Basketball League and very, very briefly in the BBL Trophy. This season, the Sharks were moving from the old home at Ponsforge into the brand new Canon Medical Arena, and as a result, they started the season with a lot of road games while we waited for the arena to open. So that meant my first game of the season would be a road game, and I decided to go and watch the Sharks take on the Surrey Scorchers, because as it happened, I was already down in London that weekend for the NFL, so I thought a quick train from London to Surrey would be very straightforward. However, the British rail system said no. The trains were on strike and getting from London to Surrey was an absolute nightmare. But get to Surrey we did to take in the game. And I'm so glad we did make it because we had an absolute blast. If you're a British basketball fan and haven't been to the Surrey Scorchers, I'd highly recommend it. It quickly became one of my favourite venues in the league. The fans were fantastic, sold out, made such a great noise, but were so welcoming to us. Sort of chatting to us before the game, after the game. They even invited us up onto the court to take part in the half-court shot game. Tom didn't put in his best showing, but to give him his credit, the ball was not the best. But yeah, that was great of him to ask us to do that. And we got the road win in overtime, which was also amazing to sneak the win out. And one of the Sharks players, Jubal Adekoya, came over and thanked us for making as much noise as we did during the game. Said he really appreciated it, and I was pretty pleased with that, given there was only 3 of us. And like I say, that Surrey crowd was amazing. To try and sort of make any sort of noise over them was pretty difficult, but try as we did. And from the back of that, we had fully caught the buzz for doing away games in the British Basketball League. And as you'll see through the rest of this video, we tried to hit as many venues as we could during the rest of the season. However, because of our lopsided schedule due to the new arena, it meant now we had a big stretch of home games, kicking off with our first ever game at the Canon Medical Arena against the Newcastle Eagles. I was really excited for this one. Obviously, brand new arena. Ponsforge had its charm, but it wasn't the best venue going, so I was really excited to see the new arena that was purpose-built for the Sharks and the Hatters. And honestly, it did not disappoint. It's a great venue. It was a fantastic opening game there, and it's just gone from strength to strength this season in there. If you've been to one of our games, I'd love to know what you thought of it as an away fan, but as a home fan, I absolutely loved it there. And it also helped that the first game, we absolutely walloped the Eagles. And we went on a bit of an unbeaten run at the new arena. So it was quite good to settle in, keep winning, and keep the fans coming back. And then after that game against the Eagles, we had one of my favourite nights of the season. So as you've already seen here, my friend Tom from At The Buzzer UK, again, he's not paying me for this. I just, you know, it doesn't cost anything to support your pals. So go check him out if you haven't already. I would imagine if you're a basketball fan in the UK, you're probably aware of his page. But anyway, I'm going to big him up regardless. But yeah, at the start of the season, he became a partner with the Sharks. So throughout the Buzzer UK, he sponsored the Sharks, and as part of that, he got his own sponsor night at a game. And for this one, it was the Sharks against the Leicester Riders. So he invited a lot of his close friends and family, and I was very fortunate to be a part of that. So as part of that, we got to sit courtside at the game, and that was absolutely fantastic. If you've never sat courtside at a game, I would highly recommend it. The view is absolutely incredible. Sort of watching the players up close from there is such an experience. And we got the win against the Riders. Jalen Pipkin scored one of the most ridiculous sort of 3/4 court buzzer beaters I have ever seen. Just absolutely incredible. So like I say, it was an amazing night regardless, but getting the win and seeing that was also pretty special. And like I say, we were settling into our new home and just having a great time down at the Canon Medical. And it was all happy days for me so far this season. 3 games, 3 wins. Absolutely loving life, until then we got to sort of the Christmas and New Year period, and we played the Caledonia Gladiators, and we got absolutely walloped. It was the first defeat I'd seen in the season, and wow, they absolutely destroyed us. It was not great, but hey ho, we moved. Then we played the Giants on New Year's Eve. Got the win there, so that was a nice way to round out the year. Watching the Sharks win again, And then we played, I'm sure this was the one, we played the Gladiators again early in the new year and in the BBL Trophy. And like I say at the start of this video, we were very, very briefly in the BBL Trophy. We did not put on our best showing, although in defence of the team, we ran into a huge amount of injuries over the Christmas and New Year period. And the roster was changing a bit. So Jubbal Adekoro, I mentioned earlier, I think he left earlier in the new year. We'd already got rid of, I think, Terrell Allen and replaced him with Prentice Nixon at that stage, but he'd only been there a few weeks. So it was a lot of change over in the team, a lot of injuries, and it was a bit of a rough patch. But hey-ho, we stuck with the team and we kept going, and then we were back into our away days. And continuing our theme of struggling to get to away games, obviously I mentioned for the Surrey Scorchers game, there were rail strikes, so getting there was a bit of a nightmare. However, the next away trip we did was the London Lions. So this game against the Lions was in, I think, February, and the game against the Scorchers we went to was all the way back in September. And the Sharks had only won one road game since then, which I think was Plymouth in early October. So we're on a bit of a barren run away from home. Having made the Canon Medical a bit of a fortress, away from home our fortunes weren't so good. And like I say, getting to this game, it was a Thursday game, we booked the train, no problems. However, the British weather this time decided to play its part, and it just started absolutely lashing it down with snow in South Yorkshire. So me and Tom, again, were heading down to this game, panicking, sort of. We knew the train would be all right, but we had no idea if we could get to Doncaster to get the train. So we set off really, really early. As soon as we got up, we just said, we'll get to Doncaster, hang around the train station, and then get down there when the train goes. But that meant we had many, many, many hours to kill at Doncaster train station. So what did we do? We went to the pub and we had pint after pint after pint. And by the time we got down to London, we were pretty drunk. And so my memory of the Lions and the Copper Box is not very good. I remember thinking the beer there was less expensive than I thought it would be. As a northerner going south, I expected to pay a lot for a pint down there. And I vaguely remember being relatively pleased with the price of a pint. And but other than that, I don't remember much. Nice venue. I can't remember if it was very full or not. Staff seemed all right. But yeah, we were pretty drunk, so don't really know what was going on. But the funny thing was, despite us getting there no problems, obviously the team were coming on the coach. And because of the snow, they were very much delayed. So we arrived at the Copper Box at about 6:30, ready for what was meant to be, I think, a 7:30 tip. And that moved to 7:45, and then 8, and then 8:30. So we beat the team there by quite some distance. So again, what did we do? Carried on drinking. So honestly, that game, I will have to do London again next year because I have absolutely no memory of the game. We had to leave early to get our train home because obviously the later tip-off time meant a later finish time, which meant we had to leave to catch our train to get back to South Yorkshire in time. But all in all, we had a very good time, but I could not tell you a thing about the game or the venue, really, apart from the price of beer was relatively nice. And then that weekend, we welcomed London back to the Canon Medical for another game, which I do remember, but I wish I didn't, because I don't think we did very well in it. And then up next, we were back on the road again, and this time, we were going as a fan base. So Tom had arranged for a minibus, so first ever sort of Sharks minibus, well, first ever for us. I think we used to have them back in the day, but for the past few years, there's not been much of a thing. But we decided to try and round up as many sort of fans as we could and try and make a bit of an away following, because we'd had such a good time at London and at Surrey. We thought if we can bring other people to this, we can have an even better time. So we managed to, I think there was 16 of us on the bus, and then probably another 10-15 joined us in Leicester for the game. So it was sort of 30 of us making an absolute racket. And again, the Leicester venue was fantastic. Again, if you've not been there, highly recommend going there. Proper good setup they've got. The fans were great. Again, one of the things about British Basketball League, all the fan bases that we've sort of been to have all been so welcoming. Sort of pleased to have you there. Pleased that you're making a bit of a noise, and just generally sort of love to see it. Unfortunately for this one, we did not get the road win. So our barren streak on the road continued, but it was a great game. And honestly, the sort of people we met on that bus, because again, it was just, we just put it out in the Sharks. So I say we, Tom did it. I'm taking credit here. It was nothing to do with me. I just said, I'll join. So yeah, Tom gets all the credit for that, not me. But he just put it in the Shark supporters group. So it was just strangers, you know, not really people we knew other than maybe faces we'd seen at the games, but they've quickly become good friends, everyone that goes on that bus, and they've grown and grown, as I'll discuss as we get further down the line, because it was such a success. We carried it on for a few more games throughout the season. After that fantastic trip to Leicester, for me, it was another home game, this time against the Plymouth City Patriots. And to be honest with you, I don't really remember a thing about this game. So we'll just move swiftly on, because we got another away trip. And this time it was over to Cheshire. Now, we weren't taking the minibus for this one. It was just 3 of us in the car, road tripping over to Ellesmere Port to take in the Cheshire Phoenix. I'm meeting one of our friends over there who lives in the northwest, so met us at the arena. Again, another new arena for us all to tick off. None of us have ever been to Cheshire before. Again, it was another good trip. Unfortunately, the Sharks didn't get the win this time, but again, another great game, and we made a lot of noise. Jalen Pipkins did one of his signature dunks, and the BBL cameras were in the right place at the right time to capture our celebrations of us going absolutely bananas at that. Again, even though there was only 4 of us in the car, and then like I said, there's another row of us probably in front, but we were trying to make as much noise as we could, which is what we do. Loud but friendly, that's what we go for. We also got to, I got to meet Aaron Rye before the game, which was pretty cool. He's one of my favourite players in the league who doesn't play for the Sharks. And we also had a little snap with the BBL trophy, which Cheshire had won earlier in the year. Again, they were very nice. They let us take the picture. Again, a theme of this video is the fans of the other teams sort of being accommodating and pleased to see us. And like I say, they saw us having a look at the trophy and said, you know, do you want to have a picture with it? So we absolutely did. And yeah, little did we know, we would be back there later in the season with a absolute army of Sharks fans, but we'll get to that later. By this point of the season, it just seemed to have got into a pattern where I was alternating between away games and home games. So after that away game against Cheshire, it was back for another home game at the Canon Medical against the Surrey Scorchers before heading out on the road again to the Newcastle Eagles. And I was absolutely buzzing to be going to the Newcastle Eagles. Tom had never been before to the Virtue Motors Arena, and neither had Aaron, who had been coming with us to a lot of the other away games. He was there with us in Cheshire. Whereas I've been to the Virtue Motors Arena quite a few times, as my son's local BBL team is the Newcastle Eagles. So I've been there quite a lot, and I have to say that is the absolute blueprint for British basketball teams. The arena is fantastic. The crowd there makes such a good atmosphere. The first season I sort of went regularly. The Eagles had a pretty bad season, but regardless of that, the fans were always amazing. And then this season, they've been in Europe and actually having a very good season, and the fans were still, like I say, there supporting the team, making such a good event. So if you've not been to a Newcastle Eagles game, I would highly recommend going. It is the best, for me anyway, the best venue in the British Basketball League. Although, shout out to Plymouth and Glasgow/Caledonia. I haven't been to either of your arenas yet, so you might be better, but I've not been there yet. So we'll have to try and do those next season. But yeah, we went up to Newcastle and we finally got a road win. Like I say, our last road win was early October, and this would have been late February, early March, possibly. Such a barren run we'd had on the road, but we managed to pull it out in Newcastle and get that road win. And yeah, just a fabulous time. Next season we want to hit it with the whole sort of Shark Nation, take the bus up and have a real good time. But even with just the 3 of us, we had a great time, and it was great to get the win. And then it was back to the Canon Medical Arena for 90s night. And when I tell you, I was absolutely buzzing for this one, because I love all things 90s sports. So getting to crack out all the vintage sportswear. I cracked out my Adidas Popper trousers, Chicago Bulls Dennis Rodman champion jersey. Everyone there was kitted out in all of their vintage 90s basketball gear. We had a great time. It was against the big rivals, Leicester Riders again. It feels like we played the Riders, or at least I've been to watch us against the Riders the most this season. But we always have good games against them. Unfortunately, we didn't win this one, and that sort of, we thought at that point, our hopes of finishing in the top 4 and securing a home playoff spot were completely gone. But no, they were not, and we'll get on to how and why that panned out a bit later on down the line. But back to it being 90s night, yeah, I think all of the British Basketball League need to do more things like this. I don't know if other teams do it, but it was brilliant. The only complaint I had, the music was not 90s. They were bangers, but they were naughties, not 90s. So next year, Sharks, we need 90s tunes, not naughties. But other than that, 90s night was an absolute blast. So after 90s night, we were all pretty deflated after thinking our chance at the top four in the playoffs had gone. But our next trip was our biggest one yet. 50 of us on the coach heading across to the Manchester Giants, which is one of the sort of more local games for us in the British Basketball League. It's about an hour and a half across the Pennines to the National Basketball Centre where the Manchester Giants play. And like I say, off the back of the success of the Leicester trip, we took a huge bus over to Manchester. I think in total there was about 100 of us there for the game, and we just had an absolute blast. Like I say, the Manchester Giants had not had a great season, so we were very comfortable throughout the game, always up, and so it was just a party atmosphere in the away end, singing, dancing, chanting with the team, just having an absolute blast. Yeah, got a big road win there, and like I say, but the main takeaway was like just everyone coming on the bus, and it was so great that we're just sort of building a sort of away following from sort of 3 of us at Surrey at the start of the season to then sort of 16 in Leicester, to then get it up to sort of 50, and then, like I say, with everyone else coming via other methods, to about 100 of us in Manchester making a racket. It was an absolute joy to see, and something that we carried on later in the season. And then, like I say, we thought with that defeat to Leicester, because they were the ones, us, Newcastle and Leicester, were battling it out for 4th spot, and we thought that defeat against Leicester, I think that put them into 4th and us down to 5th, possibly even 6th. So we thought with that, our hopes of 4th place and a sort of home advantage in the playoffs would be gone. However, towards the end of the season, Leicester and Newcastle just couldn't get it done. They were losing to, I think Bristol and Surrey were doing us massive favours against both of those teams. And then we had a weekend at the end of the season against both Caledonia and Cheshire, so the 2nd and 3rd best teams in the league. Now, as I touched on earlier, we had 2 pretty rotten games against Glasgow/Caledonia. Forgive me, Cali fans. It's still Glasgow Rocks in my head. But I will get round to calling you the Caledonia Gladiators off the bat without having to correct myself, I promise. But yeah, we had 2 rotten games against them over Christmas and New Year. And again, we'd had a bit of a wobble, so I was thinking, two games, the Friday, Sunday against the 2nd and 3rd team in the league. We had to realistically win one of them to even still be in with a shot of 4th. Ideally needed to win both, and we got off to the perfect start to the weekend against Cali. What a defensive display against them. We held them to about 60, I think. It was absolutely incredible performance from the Sharks, and the hope was back on for 4th place. And then Cheshire rolled into town on the Sunday, and again, it was an absolutely banging game. Toe-to-toe, held with them, and then just lost it at the end in a really close game. And again, the hope we thought was gone of 4th place. But again, it went down. That was the penultimate weekend of the season. It went down to the weekend after. We had Plymouth at home. That was our only game left. And we needed favours from elsewhere, and we got them. And then we held out to beat Plymouth. I wasn't at that game, which is why it's not covered here. But we got the win, and we secured 4th spot and home advantage in the playoffs. And you'll never guess who we were playing again. That's right, the team I feel I've seen 1,000 times this year, the Leicester Riders. We were going at them again for a 3-game series. The BBL had changed the playoff format this year from aggregate scores, which it had been for the last couple of years. So 2 games, and the aggregate score was the winner to best of 3 series. So as I said, we secured 4th spot. So the first game was at home in the Canon Medical, and again, like most of the games we had Leicester this season, just an absolutely brilliant game, end to end, really, really tight. And then right at the death, it was equal, and then Leicester, I think they won by 3, maybe 2, I'm not quite sure. But I remember coming out of that game, it was literally right at the end where they won. And it was just like, I just thought that was it. That was the season done. Because we basically had to win the next 2 to stay alive, basically. And just the manner of that defeat, I was like, oh, that's it, done. And I wasn't ready for it to be done because I had such a good time watching the team this season. And then we went back to Leicester Arena. So as I mentioned in our previous trip to Leicester, we took 16 of us on the bus. So now it was the playoffs. The season was on the line. We'd had about 5 days notice to get this arranged. Again, I say we, it was all Tom. I just joined the ride. Tom, absolutely amazing with these minibuses this season. But yeah, about 5 days notice to round up as many people as we could, and we were blown away. The Shark Nation absolutely got behind this. We took our biggest bus of the season back to Leicester, and then, like I say, we had lots of other fans meeting us there. Again, I think in total we probably had close to 100 going there for this do-or-die game against the Riders. And just like the first game, my God, it was so tight. We were singing our hearts out, trying to get give the team any sort of motivation we could, non-stop from tip-off to the end. And then again, like we'd had our heart broken last week at our arena, it was our turn to dish out the heartbreak to the home fans. Prentice Nixon, ball in hand, about 8 seconds left, shoots an absolute dagger of a 3, and the Sharks take the game. Now, I always sort of lose. I say it wasn't a buzzer beater. They actually had about 1.7 seconds left after it. But like I say, once that 3 dropped from Prentice, we went ballistic, and it just felt like there's no way they can pull it off. And thankfully, we'd look pretty stupid if they had. Thankfully, they didn't. They got the shot off, but it rimmed out. So there it was. We were done, and then literally, so we just rushed to the bench, sort of congratulating all the team, just sort of giving it absolute welly, because then we had less than 24 hours. This was Saturday afternoon tip, Saturday evening tip for the away game, and then game 3 was at our place at 4 the next day. So we had no voice, we had no nothing, but we just took it back to our place and ready to give it some absolute welly to try and get this game 3 won and then keep our hopes alive of keeping the season going. And back at our place on the Sunday for game 3, it was weird as a Sharks fan because it's very rare, even most of our games, even the big wins were close. We very rarely got to be comfortable during any sort of game, but we were up at the half, and then through the third and the fourth quarter, we just comfortably held a lead against them. Whether the sort of game from the day before had knocked the stuffing out of them a bit, I do not know. But it was a pretty comfortable win in the end for the Sharks. But we'd had an absolute blast against Leicester that year. Like I say, we'd been to them a couple of times and taken a few numbers. They'd come to us and brought really big numbers and made noise. And like I say, we had a good few chats with them before and after the home and away games. Sort of get to know sort of what they do. And like I say, they were very nice about us. And like I say, I can't say enough good words about them. Like I say, if you get a chance to go to their arena, give it a go because they put on a really good show there. It's a proper nice little venue. Good food and drink options, really good seats, good atmosphere. So yeah, just can't give them enough flowers, to be honest with you. But we had done it, and that meant we got to move on to play Cheshire in the semi-finals. So we avoided London because we were then effectively the bottom seed of the top 4. However, Newcastle got a big upset over Caledonia I got it right, I didn't call them Glasgow. Caledonia in the first round, which meant we became the 3rd seed of the semi-finals rather than the 4th. So we got to play Cheshire again rather than going back down to London. So, like I say, we'd already been there before, we were going back again. So again, as with the previous series, Cheshire as the highest seed got the home game first, then it was back to our arena for game 2, and if a game 3 was needed, we'd go back to Cheshire. So again, with very little notice to get the bus going, we packed out the Shark Nation bus once again. Another good 100 of us over to Cheshire for the first leg. And I tell you what, it was hard work for us as fans. Not talking about players, for us as fans trying to make noise. The Cheshire Arena, they make an absolute racket. And there were times we were trying to sort of chant over the top and just think, I can't even waste my voice doing this because they were so loud. And it was such a hot day. So the arena was boiling. and then put all the doors open to let a bit of air in. It was absolutely roasting and trying to make noise over their fans. It was, I tell you what, it was hard work, but we soldiered on and we did it. It gave it some welly for the whole game. And it was one of my favourite moments of the season. We were, like I say, just chanting all the way through for our team. And at one point, the Cheshire team just started turning their PA up louder and louder and louder. As we got louder, they turned their PA up louder. So we were trying to scream over the top of like this loudspeaker. And literally at the end of the game, I went up to I don't know if it was the guy who did it, but he looked like he was the guy who was controlling the PA system. I don't know if he expected it, but I just went to him and said that was absolutely top tier. Just absolutely hilarious. Just trying to drown us out like that. But again, after that match, unfortunately, we didn't get the win. I think Cheshire was just such a good team, and we just came up short at the end. Didn't get the win, but again, after the game, all the Cheshire fans sort of coming over to us again, just sort of saying how good it was to see away fans coming and making a noise and making themselves heard. And I'd been to the BBL Trophy finals earlier that year and seen the Cheshire fans travel, and they're all decked out, massive block of orange, all matching T-shirts, all making hell of a noise. I sort of fell in love with their team a bit that weekend. So saying to them, I was looking forward to them coming back to our arena the following. I think it was a Sunday. First game was Friday. I think it was on Sunday. Just looking forward to them again coming back to our arena and making a load of noise, and they absolutely did. They brought huge numbers, and the less said about Game 2 of that series, the better, because the BBL referees decided to. I don't know what they decided to do. To be honest, they decided to end any sort of contest early in the second. It just descended into an absolute farce of a game. I don't think it affected the result. It's not that sort of sour milk. I think Cheshire would have won regardless. As like I say, they're an absolutely fantastic team, and I think we'd gone as far as we could. But yeah, the game was absolutely bizarre. But that was it. Yeah, we ended, like I say, so the game was done at half time. So we just sort of the second half just enjoyed what was left of the season, and then that was it. Effectively fourth place in the league, and then third place, I suppose, in the playoffs, because Newcastle lost the other one to London. So we were the third highest seed in terms of how the games went. So a pretty, all in all, fantastic season for the Sharks. Obviously, we wanted to go all the way to the playoff final in London, but it wasn't to be. But hey, if you'd have told us we made the semi-finals and took it nearly all the way against, like I say, a fantastic team in Leicester and then an absolutely brilliant team in Cheshire, then I'd snap your hand off for that. And now I just can't wait for next season. Like I say, we're fully settled into our new home now. Let's see what next season can bring. Can we build on it and potentially go for a push in both the trophy and the playoffs and the league? But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Hope you enjoyed this. It's the first time sort of doing any sort of content like this. Hopefully do a bit more during the off season. But yeah, stay safe out there and be sure to join me next time. Peace.